Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light city, sweet Hope, Chicago. 22 is 4, 4, 4, 6. Come on, baby, now get your business fixed. Come on, honey, don't you?
Hi there, I'm the real Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine. Presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web, www.ntnm.org. Everything's on YouTube. Go check it out. Community policing, we're real big on that. caps24.org. We'll see what our new police commissioner has to. He seems to like community policing. He's got some ideas afoot. We'll see how that affects us, but at least community policing won't be going away. In the meantime, it is important to note that community policing dates and times have changed throughout the 24th district. Right now, all the meetings in West Rogers Park are on the second Thursday of each and every month. 2411, which is Devon to Howard and Kedzie Ridge, meets at 5 o'clock. 2412, which I chair, Devon to Pratt, Kedzie Ridge, meets at 6 o'clock. 2413, which Sonny chairs, is Peterson to Devon, Kedzie Ridge, meets at 7 o'clock.
Can I correct you, sir?
Please.
2411 is Pratt to Howard. You said Devon to Howard.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. And by the way, anytime I make a mistake, feel free to correct me. And if I don't make a mistake, feel free to trip me into making a mistake. I'm not a problem. But you're right. You're definitely right. And by the way, they're actually having their own regular meetings at a different point, but I'm only talking about the meetings that are connected with meeting with the police. Because my personal feeling, and I'm not knocking anybody, like anybody in particular, I'm just saying what I like to see, is I feel the people need to talk to the police directly. That's how the whole idea is, the police and the community working with each other, helping each other to be able to get the bad guys off the street. That's the idea. So in the more direct the contact, the better things are for the most part. So we're all in favor of that, and we hope the new commander, and I guess we're going to find out, and maybe we'll even get the guy on the air. Who knows? We'll know that those of us in the 24th District have an intense interest in keeping community policing going, and it is an extremely successful thing. And it was always very successful under the aegis of now still, as we film, Alderman of the 50th Ward. But actually, the next time we have him on, he will be the first time, the guy who's the most popular guest we've ever had, the person who actually put us on the map. People have actually said, oh, you're the guy that does the Berny Stone show. And I've heard that more than several dozen times each and every single year. And of course, we're talking about the alderman, the man who's been vice mayor of the city of Chicago, chairman of the buildings committee, alderman of the 50th Ward, Danny Solis. No, Bernie Stone, how are you?
Well, there's no longer going to be a building committee. I was the longest serving in the office of vice mayor in its history. But the new vice mayor is a good friend of mine, Ray Suarez. By the time this show goes on the air, I will no longer be the alderman of the 50th Ward. And we wish our new alderman well. I wish the incoming administration well. They've got a lot of problems to face.
No question. In terms of the building committee, that's interesting. Now, what are they going to do with the building committee? Use Lego?
They've wrapped it up into the zoning committee, as they have historical landmarks. The interesting part is I've been chairman of both of those committees. I was chairman of the building committee for 20 years and chairman of the historical landmarks committee for 8 years. Now, originally, before 1983, building and zoning were one committee. Now it'll be back as one committee. but adding on to it landmarks, which has always been a separate committee.
Now, basically, these were Emmanuel's decisions. He's the guy that decided that, or how did this?
No, well, apparently, a group of aldermen met with Emmanuel and made the joint decision. I can guarantee you that one of the aldermen who was not part of that group was the current chairman of finance,
Right.
because they cut a portion of his committee out and they made a new committee. So here was Emmanuel cutting committees and adding a new committee. Well, the savings is infinitesimal, and the joke is that where they combine committees, they haven't given the new chairman funds to hire additional help, and as a result, you will see what will happen is very quietly after this occurs, the new chairman will get additional funds to fund their committees, and there will be no savings.
So in the meantime,
They're saying right now that there's a $450,000 savings, but by the time they get done funding, there'll be no savings.
and probably actually an increase in spending.
In all probability, yes.
Yeah, I'm used to characters like. Well, actually, there aren't too many characters like Emmanuel, thank God. But yeah, I'm used to new administrations coloring things. That's
Well,
for sure.
this is for public consumption.
Right, and basically that's the same stuff that a guest on a soon-to-be upcoming show. This the same kind of public consumption that goes down the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District's cleaning stuff.
Well, I mean, but this is the way reform works.
Right. Basically, we tell you we're reforming. You're dumb enough to believe it. The newspapers buy it, particularly the Tribune, and they feed you the PIP, and then they increase spending.
Well,
Is that a fair look at the situation?
well, it's like when they decreased the legislature. They told you they're going to decrease the House by 1/3, and you're going to save tons of money. And as it turned out, in actuality, the funding went up. And if they cut the council in half, like the mayor-elect, now probably mayor, you'll see that if the legislature cuts the council in half, I guarantee you that spending will go up, not down.
I would tend to think so. And listen, the guy is a tax and spend type. That's for sure.
Well, he comes from the Obama administration.
No, there's no question about it.
And you save money by spending more. That's the whole idea. How do you solve recession? You spend money. I mean, this is what the Obama administration has been telling the public. You cure the recession by spending money.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It's ridiculous what's going on over there. It really is. It's you know what? But we're not going to spend too much time on the Obama administration. Certainly that. Anyway, so you had a shot as a radio host. How'd it
Yes.
go?
Oh, it went terrific. And WLS has assured me that I'll get additional shots. Right now, there are no openings, so I just have to wait for another opening to get more shots.
Yeah, I did listen to the podcast. It was really good. I mean, you asked people for hardball questions right off the bat.
Yeah, well, I don't want softball questions. The best one was when Tom Morris called me, and Tom Morris said, "Hey, listen, Buster, you're not getting off with that easy." He started off telling me that right from the start. But I would only wish that instead of so many congratulatory calls, I had gotten some really tough questions, or I got questions asking for my comments on the incoming administration or on the outgoing Daley administration, because I may have made their hair stand up on the back of their necks.
So tell me about the outgoing Daley administration.
Well, I think the best thing I saw on that one was the cartoon I saw in the Sun-Times today talking about the Daley legacy. And
I didn't see it.
oh, it was a beautiful cartoon. It showed the steamroller going with the Daily Legacy, and while it was covering up all the corruption, the bankruptcy, the patronage, the doing the best for your buddies. You know, no administration, in my memory, including his father's, has ever done what this administration has done, and has never been criticized for it. I've served on the housing committee for many years. There used to be a thing where the city sold land. And land sales, because they're watched so closely, have to have a 3/4 vote, unlike everything else which needs a majority vote or a 2/3 vote. But land sales have to have a 3/4 vote. But we used to have a thing called competitive bidding on land sales. There is no more competitive bidding. Everything is a negotiated sale. In other words, who gets to buy is whoever negotiates with the administration. So who they want to sell to gets the property and gets it at the price that they negotiate at. So in other words, there is no such thing as opening up to the general public to bid on it. There is no such thing as a open process. The general public is locked out, and that's the way sale of real property now goes under the current administration, and will probably be carried on during the new reform administration. They will carry on the daily process, which is negotiated sale.
I consider that a total abomination.
And that's the reason why when Alderman Berny Stone suggested open auction of the thousands upon thousands of vacant land that the city had, it was rejected by the daily administration.
Doesn't surprise me. I got to tell you, I was watching Joe Weissman, Chicago Week in Review last week, and there was this, and this typifies the reason I do not watch television news. I like to read papers in volume. I was watching this guy Rogers from Channel 5, and they were talking about the how Daley rammed things through and all the rest of it, and he was saying he just thought that Daley knew exactly what he wanted. He knew the companies that could do it, and he just wanted it done yesterday. He was impatient, and there wasn't anything dishonest about it. It's just that he thought he was in a hurry, and I felt like throwing up when I was listening to the guy. Isn't there some sort of law involved at all that that needs competitive bidding, or guess not? Mm-hmm.
No, not if you have a negotiated sale. There are certain areas in which you can make a negotiated sale, and there are reasons for making negotiated sale. Sometimes for purposes of planning, you have to have a negotiated sale. But why should every sale be a negotiated sale? Shouldn't the city have the right to have the best possible price when they sell land?
I would think so. Now let me ask you too, in terms of, the stuff I've seen, like for instance, with the, I don't get to see a lot of it because I don't deal with the government at all, but like with the CAPS program, if we want to get T-shirts, that say 24th District CAPS Advisory Committee member, not a big deal. Everybody gets like a $8, $10, $12 T-shirt. Well, we're only allowed to buy it from one particular place, and that place will charge 2 to 3 times what it would be normal price anywhere for a T-shirt.
Well, it's all part of procurement. Now, procurement, they'll set up the bid procedure and how you can make your bid under the parameters of the bid, and they'll set it up so that only certain bidders can win. And that's the way it's set up. And this has been going on in government for years.
Yeah, it's like, the so-called reform legislation for being able to give money to campaigns. It put, somebody once said that they never pass campaign reform until they figure out a way to beat it. And right now, you can give like $1 zillion to Mike Madigan or John Cullerton for them to spread around. But in terms of what you might give to an individual candidate might be lessened. Government, there's always loopholes like this, and the newspapers never seem to be hip to it at all.
Well, that's, you know,
Either that or they're on the take themselves.
During the course of the last election, I was pointing out that our great mayor-elect received over $400,000 from the same people he was criticizing. In other words, he criticized the meter deals, and yet he received over $400,000 from the lawyers and the lobbyists for the meter companies.
Yeah.
So and every one of those campaign donations were in excess of the $1,500 ethics limit had he been an elected official. But at the time, he wasn't sworn in as an elected official.
So that's his loophole.
Well, of course, he wasn't an elected official as yet.
But then again, in theory,
he was the mayor-elect, but he wasn't an elected official.
Right. In theory, he'll remember later on and take good care of them because they didn't give him that kind of money because they like the space.
Well, not only that, but here he was criticizing the whole meter deal, and at the same time taking $500,000 from them.
Right, and then given the chance, he'd probably do the same deal, or at least make it seem. Now, let me ask you, why is the Sun-Times and Tribune just giving a total pass to guys like Emmanuel? I mean, they'll decide somebody is their guy.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You watch and see, mark my words, within 6 months to a year, they'll be down Emmanuel's back, and they'll be blasting Emmanuel. Because he can only have his honeymoon for so long. They'll start knocking him.
But they anointed him mayor before.
That's all right.
The
They'll still start knocking him. Look, did you see how he released his vision for Chicago? He had a press conference. All the reporters were there. He verbally had the press conference and then distributed the committee's report after he left the press conference.
Oh, so nobody could ask him any questions.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's only going to go for so long, and then they're going to get fed up and they're going to start banging him, and that's what's going to happen.
Well, hopefully, because they're giving the guy a total pass.
It's only going to last for 6 months to a year, and then they're going to start banging him.
See, I guess what bothered me the most is they gave him the pass before the election.
Well, I've already reserved my copy of the Daily Legacy, this one the Sun-Times is promoting and selling. I want to read it, and I want to laugh as I read it.
Somebody told me, is this true or not, that you're thinking about writing a book?
Yes, I am. It's one of the things that I'm in my future. I'm going to be writing a book. I'm also going to be...
is this going to be a kiss and tell book? Or?
Of course it's going to be a kiss and tell book.
I'm in trouble.
I never kissed you.
Thank God.
I intended to lay it all out and tell a lot of things that have happened. I think a lot of it is hilarious. I think some of it is bad. Some of it I won't tell because where people, for instance, are deceased and it would hurt their descendants. Why should I hurt someone who really had nothing to do with it? But I'm not going to hesitate to tell things that did happen. I think some of it is really hilarious, but I think that the way the press and the media has handled things is ridiculous.
That I agree totally.
And this should be known. You know, how many people are going to read the book written by me? I don't know.
I'll read it.
But
I might even buy it.
well, in any event, I'll have fun writing it anyway. But I'm going to get somebody to ghostwrite it for me. I've been talking to Johnny Cass of the Tribune.
Oh, interesting.
Hopefully, Johnny would do the writing for me, because I love Johnny's writing, and
He did a hell of a job.
and
I really enjoyed that column of his when he talked about his background with Daley.
well, I I witnessed most of it, and I can tell you that most of it is absolutely true, and even though I think to some extent John was prejudiced when he first came into the press room, he says that he tried to give Daley a fair chance. I don't think so. I think he was prejudiced when he came in there. But I tried to soften some of his stuff when he first came in, because I thought he was being too critical for a while. But John has his own point of view, and some of the things he said were absolutely correct. I thought his criticism of some of my colleagues were unwarranted. But on the other hand, I think John is an excellent writer, and I think he's a great investigator.
Speaking of that genre, what did you think of Royko?
I thought that Royko was a great writer, but a lot of his stuff was more fiction than fact.
Interesting. He was a great writer, no question about it. He was also drank quite a bit.
Well, so did a lot of reporters.
That's true. I still remember Tom Fitzgerald, the Pulitzer Prize-winning Sun-Times, Sun-Times or Chicago Today, whatever it was. I remember him actually being carried head and feet out of a meeting, that he was very upset about the politics of that meeting.
Well,
and that was like about 10 in the morning.
Well, I can understand. Well, I can remember politicians being carried out of meetings before noon, but that's beside the point.
Matter of fact, one of my old journalism teachers at Columbia. Last I heard, he was working for Channel 2. Don Johnson offered to take us on a tour, like about 9 in the morning or 8 in the morning, of 5 different bars where he said you'll see most of the famous writers in Chicago.
Well, I can remember a committee chairman in the city council giving a report, and he read it off of a scrap of paper that was so small that I don't know what he was reading off of, and he was, shall I say, he had at least a fifth.
Wow.
To drink before he gave his report.
Wow.
And he was sort of slurring in his words. And we were all hee-hawing as he gave his report. But on the record, you'll never be able to tell. On the record, the report was a great report of the committee he was reporting for.
So basically, they took something that his staff churned out, and that's what they put in the record.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
that happens in Congress, and it happens in the state legislature. What goes into the record isn't necessarily what happened on the floor.
Boy, that's a real shock.
But, politics used to be a lot more fun than it is today. But that's reform, Reform takes some of the fun out of the game.
Mm. So in terms of reform, I mean, talk about the changes. We've got about 5 minutes.
Well, what can I say about the changes? There was more camaraderie before, even between the sides. You could argue a point on the floor and yet not be an enemy. Even during the worst part of council wars we were still friends.
Yeah, wow.
And I mean, everybody talks about the fact that it was racial in nature. That's not true. I mean, the members of the other side were still my friends, and while race may have been used at certain times to keep the parties together, there was no animosity. I don't think between the sides. I mean, actually, I thought Harold Washington was one of the most entertaining and most likable people I've ever met, and I wasn't put off by him. I found his company to be absolutely wonderful.
It's funny because the only time I've ever been on any kind of city committee of anything was under the Washington administration, and I was on the I was on the mayor's committee for the arts.
Yeah, which I had fights within the 29 over the cultural, because I had fights over Fred Fine because they refused to okay the appointments for the appointments to the cultural committee. I said, that's ridiculous. I mean, why are you holding these appointments up? Why are you holding Freddie Fine's appointment up? And there were those who had reasons, and I'm not going to mention names because the one in particular is deceased, and I'm not going to mention his name.
Right.
But it was ridiculous to hold those appointments up, or 45 appointments being held up, and it was absolutely ridiculous.
You know, I never even gave any thought to anybody approved. It was, by the way, actually the committee I was for the music and arts, and the idea was to see what they could do about bringing more of the recording industry and music and other things back into Chicago.
Well, and that's where I ran into a buzzsaw, and actually I ran into a sort of a religious controversy there, because they said I was sticking up for Fred Fine because he was Jewish and I was Jewish and so forth, and which had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Well, we won't have to worry about that at all with this mayor.
No, well, maybe.
Well, he's basically said, if anything, I think he's going to shy away from Jewish stuff.
Well, he said as much. He said, I am not a Jewish mayor. I am a mayor who happens to be Jewish.
Yeah.
And I think that's, in some ways, it's a proper approach. He is saying that I'm not going to do something just because I'm Jewish, and that is the proper approach.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been my approach when I try to handle all matters on an equal basis, and that is the proper approach, and that's what he has said, and I find nothing wrong with that statement.
No, I don't disagree with you, but you know, in terms of well, just as an example, and we've got less than a minute. There were times when there were well-qualified Jewish people, because if anybody in city council was going to stick up for Jews, he had to be somebody Jewish, which was you, because you weren't going to see it out of anybody else. But if there was, like, let's say, a well-qualified judicial candidate that was part of the neighborhood, you know, you'd back him. And look, the guy who's the committeeman now wouldn't even touch him. But I don't have time to let you say much other than for me to thank you.
Well, thank you.
And we will continue to have you on early and often, because I think the commentary will be extremely interesting, and we will be reviewing what the new administration and some of the new aldermen in the city council.
Well, I'll try and give you my viewpoint on it, and I'm not going to hold back either.
No, that sounds real good. And as a matter of fact, I'm already working on my catchphrases for the coming administration. In the meantime, speaking of the coming administration, Terry O'Brien's coming up in the next week or two, and I guess that has to do with flushing the toilets and whatever else. So I want to thank my entire technical crew, Sonny Hirsch. I want to thank Joe Chuck Che for bringing you, and I want to thank you for, well, hey, we're not through having fun, but thanks so much for all the great years as alderman.
Thanks, Alvy.
All the best, and stay tuned, everybody, and bye, Marty.